Last spring I had 3 bare patches in my front Bermuda. Big ones, the kind the whole cul-de-sac can see. I'd reseeded them twice and got nothing. Then I mixed up a liquid that cost me about $2 a gallon, sprayed it on, and 7 days later, those patches were filling in green. Here's the thing. This isn't a product. You won't find it on an end cap at the big box store, because the seed companies make their money when you buy 3 bags to fix one spot. Stay with me, because at the end I'll show you the exact application window, the one time of day this liquid works, and every other time it does almost nothing. Let me tell you who's behind this. It's the lawn seed companies and that whole patch and repair product category. The bags sitting on the end cap at every big box store. They've trained every homeowner in America on one instruction. Bare spot, reseed it. Water it daily. Buy another bag if it doesn't take. That's the advice. It's universal. And here's the thing. It's flat wrong for most of the lawns in this country. Here's the anchor I want you to remember. The grass in my front yard is Tifway 419, Hybrid Bermuda. It's the most common lawn turf down here in DFW, and it's in millions of yards across the South. Now here's what they don't print on the bag. Hybrid Bermuda like 419 is vegetatively propagated. It's effectively sterile. You cannot grow it from common Bermuda seed. It physically does not work. The plant doesn't produce viable seed you can buy in a bag. So think about what that means. The seed companies are selling patch and repair products straight to homeowners whose grass cannot be grown from seed in the first place. They know the customer, they know the turf, and they sell the seed anyway. That's exactly why I reseeded my patches twice and got nothing. It wasn't me. It wasn't bad watering. The mechanism was wrong from the start. I was throwing seed at a grass that doesn't grow from seed, and even the few seeds that might have sprouted got shaded out and outcompeted by the established turf around them. Zero chance. Here's the math on what that costs you. 3 bags at $15 to $20 each. Call it $45 to $60 a spot. And you don't buy it once. You buy it again next spring when the patch is still bare, and the cul-de-sac is still looking at it. The bag gives you one universal instruction, because they cannot sell you a fix that uses what you already own. There's no money in that. So let me show you the fix they left off the bag. The liquid is nothing more than a dilute foliar nitrogen feed. That's a fancy way of saying you're feeding the grass through its leaves instead of through its roots. Here's the recipe, and I want you to write it down. Into 1 gallon of water, you dissolve no more than 3 tablespoons of urea. That's about ½ an ounce. Urea is straight nitrogen. The bag reads 4600, meaning 46% nitrogen, 0 phosphorus, 0 potassium. Then you add 1 teaspoon of plain liquid dish soap. Not the antibacterial stuff. Just plain dish soap. That soap is your surfactant. It breaks the surface tension so the spray sticks to the blade instead of beating up and rolling off. That's it. That's the whole formula. Now let me be straight with you about the cost, because this is where the seed companies really don't want you doing the math. A 50-pound bag of urea runs you about $20 to $25 at a farm supply or feed store. 1 bag mixes hundreds of gallons. When you break it down, you're spending right around $2 a gallon, all in. $2. Compare that to the $45 to $60 you've been handing over for bags of seed that physically cannot grow on your lawn. There's no SKU for this. There's no shelf for it. There's no fix on the end cap that uses a feed store bag and a squirt of dish soap, because nobody makes a dime when you mix it yourself in the garage. Now, application. You don't just hose down the bare dirt. The bare dirt is the gap. It can't drink anything because there's no grass there to drink it. So you spray the patch, yes, but more importantly, you spray a band of healthy grass 6 to 12 inches, all the way around the edge of that patch. That ring of established grass is your workforce. You're feeding the soldiers on the perimeter so they march inward. I use my Chapin 4-gallon backpack sprayer, and I calibrate it before every single use. You want a fine, even mist, not a flood. And I'll say what I always say, read the label, wear your gear. I never spray without nitrile gloves, ANSI goggles, and my half-face respirator with the organic vapor cartridges. Urea isn't the nastiest thing in my arsenal, but precision kills weeds, and precision starts with treating every spray the same way. No exceptions. That's layer 1, the what. But the recipe alone doesn't tell you why 7 days. For that, you have to understand how this grass actually moves, and once you see it, you'll understand why the bag's advice was wrong from the first word. Here's the thing. Bermuda is not a grass that grows in place and stays put. It's a creeping grass. It spreads 2 ways. Above the ground, it sends out runners called stolons. You've seen them, those long, woody arms that crawl sideways across the soil and even up onto your driveway. Below the ground, it sends out rhizomes, which are underground runners doing the same job out of sight. Every few inches along those runners, there's a node, and every node is a brand new plant waiting to happen. When a node touches bare soil and gets a little moisture, it drops roots and shoots up a new blade. That's how Bermuda heals. It doesn't germinate into a hole. It crawls into it. So think about what that means for your bare patch. You don't have a seed problem. You have a spreading problem. The grass already living on the edge of that patch is perfectly capable of crawling across and closing it. It just needs a reason to put its energy there instead of growing taller where it already is. And that reason is nitrogen, delivered fast. Now here's where the foliar part matters. And this is the piece almost nobody explains. When you put nitrogen down on the soil as granular fertilizer, the plant has to wait for it to dissolve, move down into the root zone, get taken up by the roots, and travel back up through the plant. That's a process measured in days, sometimes a week or more, depending on your watering and your soil. Down here in our heavy clay, it can sit there a long time. But when you spray that same nitrogen directly onto the leaf, the blade absorbs it through tiny pores called stomata within hours. Hours, not days. You are skipping the entire root and soil delay and shooting the fuel straight into the engine. And what does the plant do with a sudden surge of nitrogen at the edge of a light gap? This is the beautiful part. Grass is opportunistic. When a Bermuda plant gets fed and senses open light right next to it, and a bare patch is nothing but open light, it channels that growth surge straight into lateral runner production. It doesn't waste it growing taller. It sends stolons racing sideways toward the opening, because in plant terms, open ground next to a fed plant is free real estate. Those runners shoot across the gap, the nodes hit the soil, they root down, and the patch starts knitting closed from every edge at once. You are not starting new plants from scratch. You are recruiting the lawn you already own to heal itself. That's the mechanism the bag will never print, because the bag is selling you seed, and seed is the one thing this grass can't use. Reseeding fails on hybrid Bermuda for 3 concrete reasons, and I want you to have all 3. 1. The 419 is sterile, so the seed in that bag isn't even the same grass. At best, it's common Bermuda, a coarser, lighter weed of a thing. 2. Even if a seed sprouts, the thick established turf around it shades it and outcompetes it before it ever gets a foothold. And 3. Seed needs constant surface moisture for 2 to 3 straight weeks to establish. And almost nobody waters a single bare spot that faithfully in a Texas spring. 3 strikes, every time. The reseed advice was never going to work, and now you know exactly why. Now let me give you the numbers, because this is where it gets interesting. With a nitrogen push and warm soil, Bermuda stolons can extend up to about 6 inches a week. Think about that. A bare patch the size of a dinner plate, call it 12 inches across, is getting closed from both edges at the same time. 6 inches creeping in from the left, 6 inches creeping in from the right, and that patch knits shut in 7 to 10 days. That's not seed germinating. That's the grass you already own marching across the gap and rooting down node by node. Here's the math on uptake too. When you feed nitrogen through the soil, the roots have to find it, take it up, and move it through the plant. That's days of lag. Foliar feeding skips all of that. The leaf pulls in better than half that nitrogen within 24 to 48 hours. You're putting the fuel directly into the engine instead of pouring it on the ground and hoping. And the cost? I told you $2 a gallon, and I meant it. A patch I'd have thrown $45, $50, $60 of seed and patch product at, fixed for the price of a gallon of water and half an ounce of urea. That's the comparison nobody on the end cap wants you to run. Now here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part even guys who know about foliar feeding usually miss. This trick only works on grass that spreads. Bermuda spreads, zoysia spreads, St. Augustine spreads. It's stoloniferous, throws those runners right across the surface. And up north, Kentucky bluegrass is the cool season exception, because it spreads by rhizomes underground. Those grasses can heal a patch because they're built to crawl into open ground. But tall fescue, perennial rye, those are bunch-type grasses. They grow in a clump and they stay in a clump. They do not send runners anywhere. For those grasses, seed genuinely is the answer, because there's no runner to recruit. So when the bag says reseed, it's right for a fescue lawn. It's dead wrong for the Bermuda, zoysia, and St. Augustine that cover half the yards down here in Texas. One instruction printed on every bag for grasses that work in completely opposite ways. And there's a gate on this you have to respect. The grass has to be actively growing for the runners to move. That means soil temperature above about 65 degrees, and the lawn already up and growing, late spring through summer here in DFW. Try this in February on dormant Bermuda, and nothing happens, because the grass isn't crawling anywhere in the cold. It's not a magic liquid. It's a growth surge delivered to a plant that's already primed to spread. Time it to the season, and it works. Fight the season, and it won't. That's the kind of nuance you simply cannot fit on a bag, because the bag has to sell the same way to everybody, in every state, in every season. There's no SKU for feeding what you already own and letting it do the work. Now, before we keep going, I want to tell you about something. If what I'm showing you today is clicking, and you're starting to realize that everything you were told about your lawn was backwards, that the standard fix was selling you the problem, then you're exactly who I wrote my book for. It's called Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol, and Chapter 1 is titled, Why Everything You Know About Weeds is Wrong, because it makes the exact same shift you just watched me make with that bare patch. It takes you out of the reaction trap, the spray it, pull it, buy another bag cycle, and into prevention, the permanent fix instead of one more tip that wears off by August. It's $17 at larrysgardenbooks.com. If you're watching on your TV right now, go ahead and grab your phone and point it at the QR code on the screen. Take your time finding it. I'll be right here. And if you're on your phone or laptop, the link's down in the description. All right, let's get back into it. So let's talk about why this got buried, because the why is just economics. The lawn seed and patch repair category is worth hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and the whole thing is built on one universal instruction. Reseed the spot, water daily for 2 to 3 weeks, repeat if needed. That instruction is printed on every bag because it sells the most bags. Think about what a foliar urea fix would do to that business. There is no profitable product to sell you for dissolving cheap fertilizer and letting your own grass spread itself. You already own the grass. You can buy a 50-pound bag of urea for $20, $25 and treat patches for years. No company is building a marketing campaign around that because there's no margin in it. So the advice gets universalized. Reseed, reseed, reseed. And it gets aimed straight at homeowners with hybrid Bermuda who physically cannot grow their grass from seed. They sell seed to people who own sterile turf. Let that sit for a second. Now I want to be straight with you, because I don't traffic in conspiracy, and you're too smart for it. Seed is not a scam. If you've got a true bunch-type cool season lawn, tall fescue, perennial rye, then seed is genuinely the right answer. And those patch products do work on those lawns. I'm not telling you seed never works. I'm telling you the suppression is the one-size-fits-all part It's taking advice that's correct for a fescue lawn in Ohio and stamping it on a bag that gets sold to a guy with 419 Bermuda in Plano. The bag doesn't ask what grass you have. It just says reseed. And that's the move, universalizing the instructions so it sells to everybody, including the millions of folks it can't possibly help. And here's what it cost you. If you've got warm season grass and you've been fighting bare spots, you've probably done what I did. Bought the bags, spread the seed, babied the water, and watched the dirt stay dirt. Year after year. $40, $50, $60 a spot. Repeated every spring, for a fix that was never going to take. Meanwhile, the patch sits there bare. The whole street can see it, and you start to think you've got a black thumb. You don't. You were handed the wrong instruction for your grass, and you paid for it on repeat. All right, here's the payoff I promised you at the top, the exact application window. Because you can mix this liquid perfectly and still get almost nothing if you spray it at the wrong time of day. There is one window. Early morning, roughly 6 to 9 a.m., just after sunrise. That's it. That's the whole secret behind the whole secret. Here's why it works. At sunrise, the grass blades' stomata, those are the tiny pores the plant breathes through, are wide open. There's a thin film of dew on the blade, and that film carries the urea solution right into the leaf. And the temperature's still cool, so the spray doesn't evaporate before it's absorbed, and it doesn't burn the tip. Then the leaf dries through the day. Open pores, dew film, cool air. That's the trifecta. Now here's where most homeowners blow it. They spray at midday. Wrong. At midday, the heat evaporates your spray before the plant can take a sip. Whatever's left concentrates into a salt and burns the tip brown. And the stomata partially close in the heat to save water, so almost nothing gets absorbed. You did all the work for near zero uptake. The other mistake is evening. Feels logical, cooler, calmer, but spraying at dusk leaves the blade wet all night, and a wet blade overnight in DFW humidity is an open invitation to fungal disease. Brown patch. Dollar spot. You went to fix a bare spot and gave yourself a disease problem instead. So early morning is the single window. A few practical specifics. Spray to slightly wet. Glistening, not running off. The second it pools and runs, you've gone too heavy and you're risking burn. Reapply every 5 to 7 days until the patch closes from both edges. And keep your air temperature under about 80 degrees when you spray. Above that, you're back in evaporation and burn territory. Get the timing right and you've already won. Get it wrong, and you'll swear the whole thing doesn't work, which is exactly the conclusion the bag wants you to reach. Before I let you go, if today made you realize you've been fighting this the wrong way, here's something to chew on. That bare patch was never just empty grass. It's exposed soil. And exposed soil is where the weed seed bank wakes up. Light hits dirt, the dirt gets disturbed, and dormant weed seeds get the exact trigger they need to germinate. Fill the patch, and you've shut that trigger off. That's why my book, Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol, opens its second chapter on exactly that. Chapter 2, The Weed Cycle. Understanding Your Enemy, pages 13 through 20. It lays out the seed bank and what wakes it up so you stop treating symptoms and get a permanent fix. Instead of one more tip. It's the system I wish someone had handed me 20 years ago. It's $17 at larrysgardenbooks.com. If you're watching on your TV, go ahead and grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. Take your time finding it. I'll be right here. And if you're on your phone or laptop already, the link is right down in the description. All right, here's the takeaway. A $2 gallon of foliar urea, mixed at 3 tablespoons to the gallon and sprayed at sunrise, makes spreading Bermuda heal its own bare patches in about a week. No seed, no bags, no babying the water for 3 weeks straight. Now you know why those patch bags on the end cap never took on your lawn. It wasn't your black thumb. It was the wrong instruction for warm season grass, sold to you anyway. Next time I'm going to show you another one. They keep quiet. The cheap liquid iron trick that greens a lawn deep and dark without forcing a growth surge, so you get the color without mowing twice a week. Go check your lawn this weekend. You'll see exactly what I mean. I'll see you in the next one.